again. I know you haven't seen me for quite a while, sorry about that, but for various reasons I haven't been doing much posting. I haven't been doing any content, and I'm just going to do this because just recently I decided to get back into archery. So the first time that I started doing archery was how long ago? Over 40 years ago. Okay. Now I haven't been doing archery that whole time, but I stopped doing it about 10 years ago, and for a few different reasons. The number one reason was that work was so busy that and a lot of the jobs are usually on weekends, over a weekend, because I work on mine sites, and the mine sites, what they do is they try and have it over a weekend so that people who aren't needed can be at home during a mine shutdown, which is what I do, mine maintenance work, which is typically done by contractors. That's what I am. I'm a casual contractor. I work for a labour hire company, but I specialise in one particular field, which is mill relining, and there's a fair bit of work on that. Anyway, enough of that. So anyway, I've recently decided, so when was it, last weekend? The weekend before, I went and helped do some working on weeds, and other guys were mowing and various things, because the grounds, the archery club, which is luckily is in my town, is like literally 3-minute drive away from me, so it's close by. And I hadn't seen the guys for quite a long time. I had seen them sort of in town, a couple of them now and then, but so I've decided to get back into it now. And one of the YouTube channels that I watch with regards to archery, I've always sort of kept on top of and watched a fair bit of archery on YouTube. A few channels, and one channel in particular is a guy called Stephen Han. He runs a shop in Adelaide called Archery Supplies. He's probably one of the biggest archery retailers in Australia, if not the biggest. And his shop is called Archery Supplies, and his channel is called Archery Supplies. Excuse me while I get rid of some of the sweat. It's really super humid. It must be about 99% humidity, even though it's overcast, as you can see. So Stephen Han on Archery Supplies YouTube channel, go and check him out, and because he's probably the most honest YouTuber as far as archery is concerned that I know of. Like, he's dead honest, and he's a retailer, and so much of what he does, like, he used to be an Australian champion. I don't know at what age group, but he was, I think, when he was a lot younger. He's a coach. He coaches juniors, and like, I think he might be a national coach. Previously, when I was at the archery club, I also did the coaching course, field archery. So it wouldn't be relevant, probably wouldn't be relevant now, but I was a national accredited field archery coach. Now, and I had a blue card, so I was coaching kids when they came along, and at demos, and we would have demos like when they'd have like sports, carnivals and whatnot, and we'd be there and showing all the kids. They'd all be interested in archery. Everybody wants to have every kid wants to shoot a bow, that's for sure. Whether they keep on doing it into their adulthood is a different story altogether. But anyway, so some of the things that Stephen was talking about reminded me of when I first started and how little I knew. So this video is essentially for people who want to get into archery. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, because yeah, you can go yeah, I can get really elaborate and esoteric and whatnot about archery, but I just wanted to keep it simple. So if you are thinking about, if you've never done it before, and if you want to get into archery, here is my advice: join a club. If there is a club in your area, join that club. It doesn't matter whether it's a target archery club, a field archery club, whatever. So there are essentially three main types of archery. There's target archery, there's field archery, there's hunting. Now, we'll put hunting aside completely, right? Target archery is essentially people standing at known distances from the target and shooting at the target. Now, I'm probably going to cop it from a lot of target archers, but I find that pretty boring. My thing is field archery. I find field archery a lot more interesting. It's harder, in my opinion, and the reason why I think it's harder is because even though some of the target archers I'm sweating. Some of the target archery distances are like, I don't know, yeah, pretty far out. But you know what the distance is, all right? With field archery, there's like, I think 6 from memory, 6 different distances, but there's a range of distance. So there's one targets numbers 1 through to 6, and 1 will be between 5 and 10, or 3 and 10 meters, 12 meters or something like that. 2 will be at I don't know, 12 and 30. 3 will be at 20 something and 40, and so that's how that works. Field archery is essentially hunting simulation. So, and field archery can be broken down into 2 types. There's 2D archery and 3D archery. They're both field archery, and most field archery clubs will have both 3D targets and 2D targets. I would say most. Our club certainly does. Regardless of what type of archery you want to get into, if there is a club in your area, regardless of what kind of archery it is, go to the club. And this is the #1 reason, and Stephen Han was touching on this and talking about it, is one of the biggest problems that he has with people who walk in off the street who've never done archery and want to get into archery, especially mostly boys, all right, young boys and men, because they want to be macho, is they want a 70-pound bow, like a recurve. They want to, so this is a compound bow. This is it's actually a target bow. It's pretty old now, but it's still an excellent bow. So this is my only compound that I've got at the moment. This is 70 pounds. Trust me, you've got to realise that if you have never drawn a bow, okay, and you draw a really heavyweight bow, yeah, you might be able to do it, alright, but if you do it repeatedly, you're going to hurt yourself. Guaranteed. No doubt about it, alright? I will put money on it that if you are drawing a really heavy bow and you have no archery experience, you are going to hurt your shoulder, okay? Guaranteed, because I've done it, alright? There was an instance where I hadn't shot my bow for like a couple of months, and being in the club, I was one of the, I think it was, at that time I was maybe number 2 or 3 in the club. So they were going to a competition, and they said, can you come along and represent us? You know, we need the numbers, and you know, you're one of the, we didn't have that many members anyway though. It's not like I was brilliant or anything. Fantastic. So I said, yeah, all right. So I went. Now it was a 3-day event. About halfway into day 2, I had to retire because I had hurt my shoulder, and it took me probably 3 months to recover from that injury. It wasn't a really bad injury, but yeah, I could not draw a bow, or I couldn't draw a bow without hurting myself again, and for at least two months, 3 months. All right. So, if you are getting into archery, join a club, because they will have club bows. They will have bows specifically for beginners. Unless it's a really tiny club with 0 members and they got nothing, most clubs, established clubs, have got bows for beginners. Okay, because even if you're 60, like I'm 59, even if you're my age and you first start archery, right? You know what? Even if you are built like Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you drew this bow several times, you would hurt your shoulder. And people would say, oh no, you know, there'd be some really jacked up dudes right out there thinking, oh, you're full of shit. You know, I'm built like, you know, like Schwarzenegger. I'm built like, you know, Hulk Hogan. There's no way that I'd hurt myself drawing that bow. Yeah, you would. All right, for the simple reason that the muscle groups involved in drawing a bow are not used for literally anything else. All right, yeah, a little bit here and there, but the particular muscle groups that you need to build up to draw a bow of any serious weight, those muscles need to be built up over a period of time, and you have to start light. Do not, because you've got to remember, there are bows, right, that manufacturers make that have got some really crazy weight ranges. So you can go like there's, I think, who is it? Jiangxing, or one of the Chinese companies. It's got a bow that goes from 0 to 70 or 0 to 60, right? So you can have that bow and you can start off really light, say like 30 pounds for a man, say 30 pounds, and then build up every week or two, like I would say every second week, put the draw weight up. You can wind it up until you get to the point where you can consistently draw a 70-pound bow. This is for the blokes. A 70-pound bow, and you can do a 3-day event, shoot for 3 days, and not have a problem. That's the position that I got myself into. But you've got to remember that, like any physical exertion, any physical sport, the particular muscles that you're using, you need to keep them in shape. You need to keep practicing. And it's not necessary, you don't have to, just, even if you're at home, right, you need to keep drawing that bow to keep those muscles in shape, because the strength will fade away like it did for me, and then I ended up hurting my shoulder. So get yourself a beginner bow. You can get some really, like I think Jiangxing and Toe Point, 2 Chinese companies, and people write off a lot of Chinese stuff. Let me tell you, the Chinese make a lot of archery equipment, and they make a lot of bows for companies that rebrand them and sell them as American bows and British whatever, right? In particular the Americans. So, you know, there was I don't know, in recent times, people, especially in the United States, people have been saying, oh, you know, I'm not going to buy Chinese, I'm going to buy American. Well, guess what? If you were buying the lower end bows in the United States, you were more than likely buying a Chinese bow, rebranded with an American brand. These companies like Toe Point and Jiangxing and Sand Leader are huge. They make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bows. Someone's buying them, all right? And a lot of you people in the United States are under the impression that you are buying an American bow, or you're not. Except for the really high-end stuff, all right? Except for the really high-end stuff, a lot of the cheaper stuff and budget stuff is Chinese, and it's been rebranded. Now, so, advice number 1, join a club. If you've never shot a bow, if you've never been in archery, join a club. You will get the correct advice. They will be able to determine what your draw length is, because everybody's different, all right? All bows, well, most compound bows, all right, have an adjustable draw length. All right, so if you've got really long arms, if you're over 6 foot like me, I've got a draw length of 30.5 to 31 inches. All right, that's around where I'm at. Okay. Whereas if you're a person who's a foot shorter than you, say 5 foot tall, you might have a draw length of 27 inches. All right, there's a big difference there, and most of the bows these days, to me, the better ones you can adjust without using a bow press. A bow press is a thing that squeezes these limbs together so that you can change strings, and these are called the cams, change cams and whatnot. So most of the better brands, in my opinion, have got rotating modules on the cams, so you can change the draw length. You can and then you can wind them up or down, the limbs up and down to change the weight. Now, I have heard it said by some people that the first bow that you should get is a recurve. So I'll show you what a recurve is. So this is a typical basic one-piece recurve. Okay, this is a Hoyt Pro Hunter. As far as I know, Hoyt don't make these anymore. They really should, because they're an excellent bow. Right, this one is how many pounds? This one's way too heavy. I got this one really cheap because no one wanted to buy it, because not many people can draw and hold 75 pounds. This is a 75 pound bow. I can't draw and hold it. All right, but it was really cheap. And I was thinking of ways of maybe thinning the width of the limbs to make it lighter or something. But that's your typical. That's what they're used to be, right? As far as recurve bows are concerned, this is what you call a horse bow, right? So, an Asian bow, right? These things have become really popular. Now, in conjunction with that, you would need, where is it? You would need one of these. Well, you don't need it, but most people use it. It's a thumb ring, because most horse bows are released with the thumb, and the arrow is actually on the right hand side, because when you're pulling it back, you're actually twisting the arrow around that way. So that's a thumb ring that I made out of PVC pipe. Yeah. So that's your traditional Asian bow. I'm a bit dry. I'm just gonna have a quick drink. Right, so this is a hunting recurve bow. I have had this one. It's a Takedown Hunter signature. Oh, Into Nature Takedown Hunter. So I think it's 50 pounds. Yeah. So it's 50 pounds. This is a hunting bow, takedown hunting bow. So you undo those bolts, and the limbs come. These are the limbs. That's the riser. The limbs come off, and you can pack it away in one of these, in a box, in a bag, a small bag. So really easy to transport with you. Oh man. Now, if you are thinking about getting a recurve, this is one of your cheapest options. So this is called a Galaxy Ember. Okay, a Galaxy Ember. Most of these bows are called Black Duck or Black Hunter, or if you Google Black Duck recurve bow, this is what you're going to be looking at. Now, I've been told that Galaxy is owned by a company called, I've forgotten what they're called now, a Korean company. So I've been told that this is actually a Korean bow. I don't think so. All of these things are made in China. There's a few different companies that are actually making them and selling them, and they're all exactly the same thing. So Korea is a huge bow manufacturer, pardon me. I'll put it to you this way. and Stephen Hahn has also said this, the vast majority of high school champions in Korea could probably beat most of the top level archers in the United States, professionals, or come close, because they have archery competitions live on TV, and I'm talking like high school competitions. They are absolutely obsessed with archery. The Koreans are obsessed with archery. It's the #1 sport, I reckon, in Korea. Maybe after soccer. But, yeah. So then you come into this. This is more target oriented, but no doubt about it, you can use this for hunting. So this is called the riser. So this is an ILF riser. Alright? I think it's the International Limb Federation or something or whatever. So these limbs, there are several, okay? There are several companies that make limbs for these bows, for these risers. They all fit, alright? Hoyt, everybody. Anybody that makes bow limbs, makes ILF limbs, okay? Everybody. That's one of the advantages of the ILF system. If you buy an ILF riser, you can buy you can start off really light with light limbs, and then you can buy heavier limbs and just sell the light limbs if you want. That's the advantage of it. To me, if you are starting, I would advise getting one of these. Even though with the Black Duck or Galaxy, whatever you want to call it, you can get different weight limbs. But the beauty of this system is that it'll be a lot of, if you want to sell the limbs, the lighter limbs that you were using previously that you no longer need, you can sell them really easily because they can fit, 100 different ILF risers, and there's a lot of different ILF risers. This one's quite heavy because it's probably cast, I'd say, cast magnesium. Now there are carbon fibre risers which are really light, but you're looking at a lot more money. That bow that I just showed you, that cost me $156, the whole thing. Okay, so it came with the riser, the limbs, string, stringer, what else? Yeah, so it came with all of that. Now, compound bows. So what I was saying before regarding some people are of the opinion that the first bow that you should get is a recurve bow. I'm not of that opinion. I don't think it makes any difference, to be honest. Okay. The beauty of a beginner or mid-level compound bow is that you can buy bows that are where the weight is really adjustable. You've got a lot of adjustment, so you can start off shooting that bow with zero experience, and you're not going to hurt yourself because you've got it set at, say, like if you're a man, at say 30 pounds. And as you build up those muscles that need to be built up, you'll be able to just crank that bow up, that same bow, and you'll be able to crank it up to, I don't know, 60 pounds. I think some of them are from 0 to 60, 10 to 60, 15 to 60, 15 to 50, whatever. That's the beauty of the compound bow. You don't have to buy light limbs and then once you've built up, buy heavier limbs, and you're just constantly buying. It's like, when a kid's growing and you keep having to buy them bigger shoes, every 6 months. With a lot of compounds, you don't have to do that. You can turn it right down, really light, and then as you build up, all right. Now, where is it? With the really basic recurve bows, you can just use the basic, that's fur actually, fur rest, alright. There are different types of rests, okay, there are flipper rests, plunger rests, I can't even remember what rest that's called. It's on my top archery Zhangxing limb thing. But go to a club, they're going to show you everything. They're going to show you everything. Now, with most recurve, well, with all recurves, you're going to need a glove or a tab, right? With the compound bow, there are some people who shoot fingers with compounds. It's a particular discipline. So this is what I use. So there's a D-loop and it hooks on the D-loop, and then you draw it and then you just release it. It's a thumb release. This is a true ball. It's a really good one. So if you do buy, and you can get some really cheap releases to begin with. If you buy a Zhangxing or a toe point archery bow kit, right, and we're talking like you can get some of them for $200. I'm talking compound bow, right? For $200 you get everything. You get a quiver, you get an arrow puller, so that's for pulling arrows, because they're only thin. It's really hard for some people to pull the arrows out of the targets, because the arrows can sink really far into the targets. My advice is, if you are starting, this is what I would, so this is to some, what I think a beginner should get is get a toe point or a Zhangxing compound bow kit with a bow, and most of those bows are really adjustable, so you can start off really light and then build up to say 50-60 pounds. Now some shop owners would say they're not too happy about that. Well, if they don't stock that stuff, that's their problem. Alright. Now the other thing that you can do, aside from just going straight to a club and joining a club, is go to an archery shop. The people in there will give you the advice that you need. Now, I might get in trouble here. Depending on which shop it is, depending on how ruthless they are, if they're doing the right thing by people, they will give you the right advice, and they will not be trying to push on you something that they're trying to get rid of. Because I've been in the retail industry, and one thing that retailers want to do is move stock, especially stock that hasn't moved or isn't moving. If they get the opportunity to move stock that needs to be moved, they're going to try and move that stock. And it may not necessarily be the best thing for you. Now, that's just the reality of retail, regardless of what we're talking about. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about archery, but just bear that in mind. So my advice is, join a club. They will give you the advice that you need. Plus, the other reason is that you will be able to see various types of bows, various brands of bows, and if you're able to draw those bows, you can have a go at drawing them. And because there can be a fair bit of difference about the draw cycle of a lot of bows. Because with the compounds, what happens is that you start off light when you're drawing it, and there's what's called the hump, where you hit the maximum weight, and then you get over that and you're into what's called the wall, which is you're over that weight hump. And like I had a Rytera bow that I sold to a young lady. I practically gave it away to her. I sort of regretted doing it, but she needed a decent bow, and that's a really good bow. And the wall on that, like quite literally, you had to virtually push it to release it without firing. Now, the number one rule of archery is do not dry fire your bow, regardless of what kind of bow it is. Recurve, compound, doesn't matter. There are, I think Hoyt had a series of bows that were they reckon were indestructible. You could dry fire over and over again and they wouldn't get hurt. Yeah, I don't know if they sell that type of bow anymore. But I'm telling you right now, if you dry fire your bow, If it's a compound, you're probably going to bend the cams. You may snap some fibres of the string, if not the whole string. The peep will probably pop out, and the limbs may shatter or start to delaminate, crack, start to delaminate, if not shatter. Right? Dry firing a bow can be very catastrophic. The older bows, not so much. All right? They did not have aggressive cams like the modern bows do. With the really aggressive cams that modern bows have, if you dry fire it, I guarantee it's going to cost you a lot of money. And if you try and take it back to the shop where you bought it from, so if you don't buy it online, if you try and take it back to the shop that you bought it from and tell them, oh, this bow broke and I wasn't doing anything wrong, they're going to know you're full of shit, all right? And they're going to tell you, you're full of shit. You dry fired it. Because, you know, they know what dry fired bows look like. They're repairing them all the time. Stephen Han at Archery Supplies reckons that he gets 2 a week that have been dry fired, and he said it's typically beginners with 70-pound bows. So the bows are too heavy for them, and they don't know what they're doing. All right, or one of their friends or their brother picks up the bow when they're not there or when they're not looking and dry fires it, not knowing any better. So if you're a young person and you have siblings, you need to tell them, and you buy a bow, a compound bow, especially a compound bow, you need to tell them, whatever you do, don't dry fire it. Or whatever you do, leave it alone, or keep it locked up so they can't dry fire it. Now, dry firing with a recurve bow can be just as catastrophic. I can tell you right now, dry firing a recurve bow, you'll more than likely crack the limbs, or they'll shatter, just break. Alright, so dry firing any bow, regardless of what kind it is, that is the biggest no-no. Alright, so where am I at? Arrows, you know what? There's all different kinds of arrows. 99% of them are carbon fibre. Alright, there are different quality arrows. There are different types of arrows. There are different types of, so that's called the fletching. Alright, there are different types of fletches. That's called the knock. That's called the point. So these are field points. These arrows are field archery. I'm not going to get into hunting. I'm not going to show you broadheads. Now, so this is a recurve string, and those things on there are called whiskers, and they're for silencing, because some bows can be a little bit noisy, especially if you're hunting. You want to keep the noise down, because if you miss the first time, you want to be able to knock another arrow and have another go at the animal. And yeah, if your bow's noisy, that's not going to happen. Now, quivers. Probably what most people think of when they hear the word quiver. So that's a quiver that just holds the arrows. Right? That's a traditional quiver. I think that's a marten. All right, marten aren't around anymore. And I'll explain that. This is more a field archery quiver, and a whole belt, and you can have all your accessories. What did I put in? I used to have my release aid in there. Remember, what have I got in here? I don't even know what I've got in here. You know, I haven't looked at this for so long. Oh, that's another release aid. That's the emergency release aid. What about in there? I've got because you got to write down scores. I've got pens and things, and what else is in here? Oh yeah, just some tools, so Allen keys and whatnot. So this is another arrow. So this has got feather fletchings. The beauty of feather fletchings is they're very forgiving. They use turkey feathers, and they won't go out of shape unless you really, really damage them. Let's see, what else can I get into? You know, I can really go into the weeds, but I'm not going to. I just wanted to keep it basic. So, rule number 1, if you want to get into archery, join a club. Rule number 2, get, people are going to think, oh, you must be getting paid by Jungsing and Toe Point. I'm not. All right, it's just that they offer the best beginners all up kits that you can get. All right, for about 200 to 300 Australian dollars, you can get a kit that has got a compound bow that you can adjust from 0 pounds, 10 pounds, up to 50 pounds, 60 pounds, right? So you can keep that bow and build up with it. Start off light. Those two Chinese companies make, and you get everything. You get this. So in that kit, you will get the bow, you will get the sight, you will get the rest. All right, that's a drop away rest. You will get some of the kits. You will get a bag. You will get a dozen arrows. You will get a release aid. It's, all of this stuff won't be the best stuff, but for a beginner, who cares? You're just beginning. So that's my advice. Join a club, get a Jung, and it's Junxing, Jungsing, or Toe Point, Topoint. They're two Chinese companies who make really good beginner kits. Get on a Stephen Hand at Archery Supplies, call him, and he can sell you those kits. If your local archery store doesn't keep them, and they could probably get them in from Archery Supplies, because he gets a lot of that Chinese stuff in. There is nothing wrong with Chinese bows, all right? They've been making them for a very, very thousands of years, actually. And then once you get to a certain level, then you can upgrade. You can get a better quality bow and start spending serious bucks. So I've got to do a fair bit of work on this bow because everything's rusty and I haven't touched it in a long time, dirty, and some of the rubber has deteriorated. My string has twisted around, so my peep sight is not where it should be. So I'm getting back into it, and it's like being a beginner again. And I will be starting off light. That's the reason why I got this bow, the Top Archery ILF recurve riser, and I got the lighter limbs. So these are, what are they? What are these limbs? It says it in there. I can't remember now what the poundage is. So these, I think this is like, I don't know, 40 pounds or something. I'm a big guy and I do know how to. One of the reasons also why a lot of people hurt themselves in archery is that they don't use correct technique. Here's a tip. If you're having to draw your bow like this, alright, it's too heavy for you. This is how to draw a bow, it's just straight back. If you can't do that, then the bow that you have is too heavy for you. Simple as that, and you're going to end up hurting yourself. I guarantee it. Alright, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I'm just trying to think if I've missed anything. No, not really. Now you'll notice one thing. It's a big bow. It's a 40-inch axle to axle, or 41-inch, or 40.5, I can't remember now. The longer the axle to axle length is, the more forgiving the bow is, the more accurate the bow is. That is why 99% of target archers shoot typically around 40-inch axle to axle bows. It's just a fact. The reason why there are so many short axle to axle bows is for hunting. If you're up in a tree stand, this is the United States, if you're up in a tree stand, you don't want anything really bigger than a 30-inch axle to axle, because you're gonna, it's just not convenient or to carry around when you're hunting. Most of the archery equipment that is sold in the United States is hunting. In fact, Stephen Hand visited 80 stores in the United States. He didn't see one target bow in 80 stores. Unbelievable. They're just not interested. They're interested in making the best hunting bow you can get and the best target bow. I mean, you're not the big what I call them the big four. So you're looking at Hoyt, what's it called? Elite, Bowtech, and PSC. I call them the big four. Those four brands make really expensive, really high level bows. Unless you're a serious target archer, and unless you've got a shitload of money, like even the hunting bows, then yeah, they're out of most people's price ranges. They are really expensive, especially where the Australian dollar is now. Back when the Australian dollar had parity, yeah, I bought a whole heap of stuff from the United States. I can tell you right now. These days, no. In fact, the next compound bow I get will be a Chinese compound bow. It'll be a toe point, a Junsing, or a sand leader. Sand leader is the other large Chinese bow manufacturer. They make excellent bows, alright. And Stephen Hunt said that with toe point bows, they don't come back, alright. He has no warranty issues with them. One of the reasons may be that when you dry fire one of the Chinese bows is they're not as highly strung. Everything, you know, like the cams and that aren't as aggressive. The weights aren't as high. Therefore, I mean, the heavier the weight a bow is, when you dry fire it, the more likely you're going to destroy it. So again, I'll sum it up again. My advice: join a club, buy one of those kits. Alright, bow kits from Junsing or Top Arch or Top Toe Point. Sorry, Toe Point. Alright. If you're not sure, go online, have a look at those. You can see those bow kits. They're between $200 and $300 Australian. You get everything. Right. Go on. What's it called? Go on Stephen Hand's YouTube channel, because he's got stuff in there that he talks about. In fact, one of the last videos is winners and losers of 2023, and he actually shows you a couple of the bow kits that you can get. He's got his phone number on the. If you have a look at Archery Supply's website, you can ring him up and talk to him about it. All right. So I'm sounding like a advertisement for Archery Supplies, Stephen Hand, but if someone is doing something really good that benefits especially beginners, you know what? When he sells a beginner bow, typically to someone who just walks off the street who's never done archery, he loses money. The amount of time that he spends the time to set the bow up for them. He spends the time to show them how to shoot. Right? So he'll typically spend at least a couple of hours with someone who's walked off the street and never shot a bow before. And if they buy one of those, say, $250, $300 bow kits, right? The actual markup that he's got on it, all that profit is gone, and he's actually in the red. So that's the kind of guy he is, because he's trying to actually help people. He's not interested that much in getting rich from archery. He makes more money on, and he said this, he makes more money on investments than the archery shop that he has. Right? A lot of the time he loses money at that archery shop, but because he loves the sport and he loves introducing new people into the sport, that's why he does it. So Stephen, you're doing a fantastic job. All right, so that's all I'm going to say. Join a club, get one of those Chinese bow kits, and you can't go wrong. So until then, see you later.